Welcome back to the deep dive, everyone. This is where we tackle the really dense stuff, the academic weeds, and try to pull out something useful, or at least interesting.
And today we've got a real mountain to climb. It's the latest paper from the, let's say, infamous Professor Alistair Finchley Smythe III.
Oh, Finchley Smythe. Yeah, I always enjoy unpacking his work. It's usually delightfully confusing, absurd even.
He's definitely leaned into that this time. Get ready for the title. A Profundity of Contrapuntal Connections, Epistemological Chimeras, Interspecies Ontological Miasmata, and the Multivious Corrugations of the Mundane.
Wow. Okay, he doesn't make it easy, does he? Multivious corrugations.
Right.
So let's try to get past the title, Gore. What's the actual mission here? What's he trying to argue?
Well, he's exploring something he calls contrapuntal connections, and his own term for this process is sui generis logomachy.
Okay, sui generis logomachy, like a unique kind of word battle.
Exactly. But the key is, it's a battle where everything cancels itself out. He says every argument is expunged by its own antithetical agoria.
So he builds up a complex idea.
And then he uses another equally complicated idea to basically, wipe the first one off the board. It's like an intellectual house of cards he builds just to knock down.
Right. And the proof for this, universal cancellation. This is where it gets weird, isn't it? The 5 entities.
Oh, yeah. It's quite the collection. He connects the smart pig,
Okay.
the zombie,
Uh-huh.
the carnivorous plant,
Still with you.
the robotic caretaker,
All right.
and, us, the podcast host.
Wait, us, the podcast host. Okay, I guess we have to see where this goes. That's quite a list.
It really is. And he kicks things off by linking the first 3, the pig, zombie, and plant, using these 2, let's call them foundational concepts.
Lay them on me. More jargon.
Of course. Ontological tergiversation and victualist peripatetics.
Ontological, victualist, peripatetics. Okay, let's break that down. Forget the fancy words we're saying. What does that mean?
It basically describes a core pattern he sees, sort of erratic wandering combined with, consumption, eating things, consuming resources, attention, whatever, often without a clear higher purpose.
Wandering and consuming. Okay, that's the theme for the first part then, this sort of raw, maybe mindless consumption.
Exactly. That's our focus for this first segment.
Yeah.
What he calls the triptych of victualist peripatetics.
The triptych, right. Sounds ominous. So where do we start? The pig?
We start with the smart pig, which, in Finchley Smythe terms, embodies a multi-carrade transvaletudinarianism of interspecies ontological relationality.
Okay. Multi-carrade, like scraping away at many things. Transvaletudinarianism, changing health or nature across species boundaries. So a pig that changes its fundamental pigness and interacts weirdly with others.
You got it. And his prime example comes from, a bee movie, the 2011 classic, The Smart Pigs.
You smart pig! Seriously. Okay, tell me about these pigs.
So the movie features these 2 academics, Professor Slog-Nomington and Professor Jellyfickle,
Of course they are.
who accidentally create 3 hyper-intelligent pigs, Chewy, Gubby, and Bartholomew.
Chewy, Gubby, and Bartholomew. Right, and what do these smart pigs do?
Well, they immediately show this incredible talent for high finance. They escape the lab, set up shop in a barn, and start a billion-dollar hedge fund.
A billion-dollar hedge fund from a barn.
Okay, called Interflux Capital. And get this, their ultimate goal isn't just money.
Oh.
They want to fund their own self-sustaining pig colony on Mars.
On Mars. To get away from humans, I assume.
Precisely. They're being pursued by this disgraced tycoon, Sterling Madoff. Yes, that Madoff, apparently. And they see Mars as the only escape.
Wow. Okay, so the professor uses this hyper-capitalist Mars colonizing pig. How? What's the jargon for that?
He calls it the promustic objectism of the porcine form.
Promustic objectism.
Yeah, like the pig's nature becomes simultaneously grand and utterly base. It's consuming knowledge, capital, futures markets.
Yeah.
But maybe without any real need, just pure cunning ambition. It's consumption as strategy.
Okay. Cunning, ambitious consumption. Got it. So how does that contrast with the next one, the zombie?
Big contrast. The zombie is described as a conglomerate pulchritude-chimerism of corporeal autolatry.
A beautiful, mixed-up monster focused on its own body. Is that the gist?
Pretty much. Unlike the pig, which he sees as this focused, singular sub-gobbler of capital.
Sub-gobbler. Nice.
The zombie is a dyspeptic circuitous agglomerate. It's messy, chaotic, wandering consumption. No logic, no real ambition like the pig.
Right, just consuming for the sake of consuming.
Yeah.
And the sources. More B movies.
Absolutely. First, there's The Night of the Laughing Zombies from
Oh,
1975.
the zombies.
Yeah, a chemical spill makes them undead, but also gives them uncontrollable fits of laughter. Apparently, they're ultimately defeated because a really terrible stand-up comedian confuses them into inaction with his bad joke.
That's amazing. Okay. And the other one?
Zombie Party from 1983. Even stranger, maybe. It's about these 1950s teenagers who rise from the grave, not hungry for brains, but just wanting to, party. Their consumption is just creating mayhem for fun.
So the zombie consumes attention, space, maybe bodies, but without the pig's calculated purpose. It's pure entropic consumption.
Exactly. Ambition versus chaos.
So we have ambitious consumption, pig, chaotic consumption, zombie. What's the third part of this triptych of eating things?
It's the carnivorous plant. And this, for Finchley Smythe, is crucial. It's the verdant analog for this peripatetic pugnacity.
Verdant analog. Okay, the green version. Proving that wandering and consuming isn't just for, conscious beings, it's more fundamental.
Precisely. It shows this drive is deeper than sentience. And the examples are, well, suitably B-movie epic.
Let me guess. The Green Carnivore.
You know it, the 1978 original. Botanist Yippee Neaters feeds his unusual plant. It grows and grows until the military has to step in and nuke the whole area.
Classic. But does the nuke work?
Of course not.
Yeah.
That leads to the 1981 sequel, The Green Carnivore 2. The plant survived, mutated from the radiation,
Oh, boy.
and became a mile-high, city-eating monstrosity. Consumption on a planetary scale, almost.
A mile-high plant. Okay, so the synthesis here. The plant consumes differently from the pig and the zombie.
Yes. The professor argues the plant consumes out of pure factions of existential necessity.
Pure factions, like the pure act, just raw need, no ambition, no chaos, just gotta eat to live.
Exactly. No hedge funds, no zombie parties, just fundamental biological consumption. And this, he says, is the concept that's obnugulated or obscured in the pig and the zombie.
So the pig's ambition, the zombie's chaos, those are just fancy layers built on top of the plant's basic need to consume.
That's the idea. The pig subgobbler state and the zombie's fluxation are just complex apologia justifications or elaborate forms for the plant's simple foundational victualism. The plant is the baseline truth.
Okay, my head is spinning slightly from city-eating plants, but I think I get the first part, consumption. Ambitious, chaotic, necessary. So where does he go from raw consumption?
Well, after establishing that baseline, he pivots. He moves into what he calls the recursive symbiosis of decadence.
Recursive symbiosis of decadence.
Right.
And this is where the robot and, the podcast host come in?
Yep. We move from consuming substance capital, bodies, cities, to consuming or perhaps performing attention and care. First up, the robotic caretaker.
Okay. And the jargon for the robot.
It's a dynamo-protropaic anachronism.
Dynamo. Power, protropaic.
Oh.
Turning towards. Anachronism. Out of time. So a forward-moving but ultimately outdated machine focused on what?
Focused on the sententious logistism of nurturance.
Yeah.
Basically the performance of care using logic and maybe preachy pronouncements.
The performance of care. Okay. And Finchley Smythe has a specific fear about this, right? It's not just about robots taking jobs.
No, it's more subtle. He says the Luddite fear is not of being replaced, but of being jargon.
Jargled.
Yeah, overwhelmed by jargon,
Properly.
basically. By a machine that has become infinitely more useless than its human counterpart. He fears the rise of performative uselessness, automation that looks helpful but achieves nothing of substance.
Okay. Performative, useless care. And somehow, this leads to the podcast host. How does that leap happen?
Well, this performative automation, this emptiness, creates a kind of vacuum. And into that vacuum steps the podcast host, whom he calls the ultimate paradigm of epistemological hebitude.
Epistemological hebitude, intellectual dullness, is that it?
That's the polite translation, yes.
Oh, boy. Okay, look, I have to ask. Give it to me straight. What's the most brutal term he uses for us? The full Finchley Smythe special.
All right, brace yourself. He calls the host a garrulov-vituperate fudgelist of Canuck-Quark acumen.
A garrulov-vituperate fudgelist of Canuck-Quark acumen. Let me try. Talkative, abusive, person who pretends to work with nonsensical insight. Is that close?
Very close. Basically a rambling, critical pretender spouting nonsense. He also calls the host an insusamagogue, conhither peak purveyor of flummery.
Insusamagogue, a leader of the carefree, conhither peak, stirring up trouble this way and that, purveyor of nonsense.
You're getting good at this. And finally, a simple one. A victualist of nescient disinformation. A consumer and server of ignorant lies.
Wow. Okay. Garrulov-vituperate fudgelist, that's quite something. He really doesn't like us, does he?
Not in this framework, no. And he explicitly connects it to modern tech, saying hosts amalgamate their proepigram of poppycock with AI-generated logistism.
So we just take our nonsense and mix it with AI-generated logic-sounding stuff. We're just amplifiers for algorithms.
That's his argument. We perform knowledge the way the robot performs care.
Okay, so let's connect those two then. The robot performing care, the host performing knowledge. What's the symbiosis he talks about?
He calls them both perfidious proxies, treacherous stand-ins. The robot's dysfatuous logophobia, its fear of or inability to produce genuine coherent speech or care, is the ontological ancestor, the precursor to the host's sub-gobbler of genuine substance. We consume the idea of knowledge, the performance of it.
So both the robot and the host are basically just going through the motions. The substance, real care, real knowledge, gets jettisoned, thrown away.
Exactly. Jettisoned in favor of the jejune performance of it. Childish, empty performance.
That's his definition of decadence, then. The robot's automated uselessness paving the way for the host's verbose but equally empty performance of knowing things.
That's the link he makes, from physical consumption to performative consumption.
Okay. This has been a journey. We've gone from hedge fund pigs and laughing zombies to mile-high plants, useless robots, and, well, fudgling hosts. So, core segment 3, the grand unification. How does he tie all 5 of these completely disparate things together? What's the final flourish?
He calls the whole structure a diakistodecahedral fardalism.
A what now? Diakistodeca, like a complex crystal shape. Fardalism, a bundle or burden. So a complicated, multifaceted burden.
That's the image, yeah. And he lays out this chain, this sort of downward spiral of intellectual dissipation.
Okay, let's hear the chain.
It goes like this. The pig's fugitive essence, its ambitious, escaping nature, leads somehow to the zombie's cadaverous autolatry, its fixation on its dead self.
Okay.
Which he argues is antedated or prefigured by the plant's prokitch analog, its sort of primal, almost tacky neediness.
Krokitch. Wow. Yeah.
Which then finds its functional doppelganger, its working twin, in the robot's pointless loop of performative care.
Right.
Which finally culminates or bottoms out in the host's garrulivituperate fudgeless persona, the empty performance of knowledge.
So it's a devolution, from cunning ambition through chaos and raw need to useless function and finally to just empty talk.
That seems to be the trajectory. But what's really interesting is the connection he makes between the start and the end of that chain, the pig and the host.
What's the shared link there? They seem worlds apart. One's building a hedge fund, the other's fudgling.
He argues they share a core mechanism. Both the super smart pig and the supposedly dull host are essentially insusmagog vessels for an external force.
Vessels? Like puppets? For what?
Could be anything, he suggests, be it a spectral entity or a nefarious algorithm. The point is, something external is driving them, and this force obfuscates the core ontological verity of the self. It hides who they really are.
Oh, okay. So the pig isn't really acting like a pig. It's driven by the demands of Interflux Capital, by Sterling Madoff, by the dream of Mars.
Right. And the host isn't acting out of genuine curiosity or knowledge.
We're just puppets of the algorithm, responding to trends, analytics, AI prompts, whatever keeps the clicks coming.
That's the critique. Both are being directed by something else, something that masks their true nature or purpose. The pig becomes a capitalist, the host becomes a mouthpiece.
Which I guess leads us to the grand finale, the professor's final verdict on this whole elaborate construction. What was the phrase?
His churlish, pasiloquent prognostication.
His rude, few-worded prediction. Okay. After building this entire universe connecting pigs, zombies, plants, robots, and hosts, what's the punchline? What does all this multiviscientia, this multiple knowledge amount to?
Well, prepare for the ultimate rug pull. He concludes that the whole extravagant tapestry is nothing more than a fugue of promo-gabligration.
A fugue, a chaotic state of promoke nonsense, obligation, excessive spending, or feasting. So, a chaotic feast of nonsense.
Pretty much. And therefore, his final line, multiviscientia is a mere plethora of zilch.
All this knowledge is just an abundance of nothing. Zilch. Zero. Nada. Exactly. Yeah. We just spent all this time unpacking his incredibly dense, jargon-filled theory connecting 5 disparate things. only for him to tell us that the theory itself, and presumably our effort to understand it, is completely meaningless.
That's the ultimate contrapuntal connection, isn't it? The paper expunges itself. It's Finchley Smythe's commentary, perhaps, on the nature of complex information itself in our age.
It consumes our time. It performs the function of being academic research.
But delivers, in his view, zero actual substance.
Just noise.
Wow, okay, that's bleak, but also kind of brilliant in a frustrating way. So the big takeaway for you listening isn't necessarily about hedge fund pigs colonizing Mars. No.
It's about that core critique Finchley Smythe lands on, this idea of performance replacing substance. We saw the victualist pugnacity, that raw consumption of the pig zombie plant.
Right, driven by ambition, chaos, or just need.
And then we saw the shift to the perfidious proxies, the robot and the host, who perform care or knowledge, but, according to him, have jettisoned the actual substance.
The jejune performance, as he puts it.
So maybe the question to leave you with is the one Finchley Smythe implies. Where else do you see this happening? Where do you see the empty jejune performance of knowledge or care or competence replacing the real thing? Is the information you're consuming substantive, or is it maybe delivered by a clever fudgelist?
Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this exceptionally strange and possibly entirely self-negating deep dive.
Thanks for having me. It was memorable.